Okay, the last thing we have here in section 8.2 is solving equations. I'm actually going to skip to B first, just because it's a little bit easier. And then we'll go back and we'll do A, and of course we'll do C. The first thing we have to recognize with this equation is that it has two answers. It has two answers because cosine is positive in quadrant 1, because all things are positive in quadrant 1, and cosine is also positive in quadrant 4. So we're going to grab our calculator, and we're going to do theta is cosine inverse of 0.531. And that's going to give us an answer. Cosine inverse of 0.531. Let's call it 57.9 degrees. So there's our answer in quadrant 1. 57 degrees, that's an acute angle, so definitely quadrant 1. So now what we need to do is we need to find the answer in quadrant 4. So again, the way I like to do that is to draw an angle. Draw a graph, I mean. So we're looking for an angle like so. We're looking for this angle right here, theta. What we know is that this reference angle right here, theta sub r, is 57.9 degrees. So how do we go from this reference angle to finding this angle? Well, we go all the way around, that's 360 degrees, and then we subtract our reference angle. So the other angle, theta, is 360 degrees minus 57.9 degrees, 302.1 degrees. All right, so finding the first answer was really easy. We used our calculator to get rid of a cosine. We do cosine inverse. Finding the second angle requires a little bit of thought. All right, now let's go back up to A. A, once again, I would grab my calculator and I would do theta is sine inverse of negative 0.8480. Sine inverse of negative 0.8480. We're going to call this negative 57.99 degrees. Okay, so you might be wondering why. Well, this is a happy coincidence that these answers are almost the same, but one's positive, one's negative. Don't worry about that. But you might be wondering, why did this one give us an answer in quadrant 1 while this one gave us a negative angle? Why this one's positive, why that one's negative? There are very specific reasons for that. Unfortunately, those are beyond the scope of this class. So you don't really need to worry about that. What you need to worry about is this an acceptable answer? And the reason's no, because it wants a positive angle. When I used my calculator here, it gave me an acute positive angle. I was happy with that. All right, the next thing we need to recognize is sine is negative. That means we've got an answer in quadrant 3 and 4, because sine is positive in 1 and 2. So this negative 57.99 degrees, that's this angle, negative 57.99 degrees. So it's given us the answer in quadrant 4. Unfortunately, it just didn't write it the way we want it. We want it as a positive angle. So what we need to do is find a coterminal angle. Well, finding a positive coterminal angle is quite simple. We just add 360 degrees. So negative 57.99 plus 360. So a positive angle is 302.01 degrees. So there's our first answer. And that's our answer here in quadrant 4. Now we need the answer in quadrant 3. This negative 57.99 is very important. That's really telling us our reference angle. Remember, a reference angle is always a positive number. So So our reference angle is positive 57.99 degrees. So in looking for my answer in quadrant 3, what I know is this reference angle, theta sub r. So how do I get the angle I want? I start with 180 degrees, and then I add that reference angle. So the other answer is 180 degrees plus 57.99 degrees. 180 plus 57.99 is 237.99. Okay, so this is very often the process you're going to have to go through. You know, sometimes it works out well. You do this cosine inverse or the sine inverse or the tangent inverse, depending on the problem. Sometimes it'll give you the right answer right away. Other times, it's going to give you a negative answer. If it gives you a negative answer, you're going to add 360 to find the coterminal angle. And then in either case, you're going to use the reference angle to find the other answer. And you just need to understand which quadrant you need to go to. For cosine, we were positive, so we needed quadrant 4. For the sine, we were negative, so we needed quadrant 3. All right, let's do this last one. So theta would be tan inverse of negative 5.3645. Tan inverse of negative 5.3645. We're going to call that negative 79.44 degrees. And you can see once again it gave us a negative angle. And that angle is down here in quadrant 4. Fairly close to negative 90 degrees. Well, we want the positive angle. So to get the positive angle, we just add 360. So 360 minus 79.44 is 280.56 degrees. There's our first answer. That's in quadrant 4. Then we're dealing with tangent. So where is the other answer? Tangent is negative in quadrant 4. We got that answer. Tangent is also negative in quadrant 2. So we need a quadrant 2 answer. What we know, that's not very straight, but you get the idea. What we know is the reference angle. Remember, the reference angle always goes to the x-axis. So we know that angle, 79.44 degrees, we want this one. So we're going to go halfway around, 180 degrees, and subtract the 79.44. So our other answer is 180 degrees minus 79.44 degrees. 80 minus 79.44 turns out to be 100.56 degrees. Okay, so quite a lot going on there. Pay attention to those carefully. You've got to first find, to use the inverse trig function on your calculator. Then you're going to deal with making sure you're in the right quadrants. And on top of that, you got to deal with your reference angles.